No dash. Looks like we're not going anywhere today. Let me show you what we have going on here. My car, when I bought it off my grandfather, well, it's always been a base model car. This car came with, let me get some light. It was a rubber floor mat, shift on the column, bench seat car. So let's see if we can see the bench seat. Bench seat. I had an incident one day and I dropped a coffee on the seat. And I decided to buy a center console, just the bezel, and create myself some cup holders. So let's go take a look at what we have going on. So what I plan on doing is putting these boat cup holders. They're spun aluminum. I bought them off eBay. Into this center console, so I have cup holders. I'm going to modify so I can put one here and one here, so the passenger can have a beverage holder as well. So originally there was a fuel gauge which goes in the place of the tach. And because it was a base model car, there was just a knockout plate, clock delete plate where the clock is. So I removed those and I installed the clock and the tach. So that's just a white plate that goes in behind, so when you have the dash lights on, it gives a little more reflection for your cluster. In behind, this is what it looks like. Guess I should get a cloth so I don't scratch the shit out of it. After restoration, they turned out pretty clean. This, by the way, is my original printed circuit board from 1974. Still in excellent shape. Now, what I have to do is follow the traces on the circuit board for the clock and tach. So originally where the fuel gauge was, which is here, you have ground and you have your fuel. And I'm going to trace that back to the plug that plugs in there to get the wire color, so I can do a little surgery to make all this work. Alright, so I've screwed the cluster back into the dash. And what I've done is I've just hooked up a battery to test the clock out before I get this all installed and realize it's not working. So I put white wire over to the positive on the clock, the other wire over onto the ground, and you can see the second hand is turning. And I don't know if you just heard that. You heard kind of a pop. That is the rewind solenoid. There's a tiny solenoid, and when it gets to the end of its cycle, it gives a little kick to rewind. Hi everybody, we've made it back in the car, so I'm going to start modifying the wiring. That way I can get the tach hooked back up in the dash, because the fuel gauge will have moved down into the center console, and the clock needs a constant power. I also need to run a dash light or instrument light down into the center console to light up the gauges. So previously I had said on this harness that plugs into the cluster that the blue was the fuel sender. I was wrong. It's actually the brown wire or tan right here. So I need to cut this wire, and on this side of it I need to tap on extend to go down into the center console, and then on this side I need to run a wire from the HEI ignition tach out on the cap into up to here, and I'll wire it on. Always test your wires. I've already done this. What I use is I believe it's made by Mac Tools test light. This test light has two leads on it, a negative and a positive. So you can hook to anywhere on the dash, and when I find 12 volts, I have LEDs that light up. Now, say I'm trying to find a ground or something that is triggered by a ground. Hang on. I gotta try and get this hooked up on the 12 volts. So now we see on the test light that we always have a red LED that's on, and if I touch ground, you can see a green LED. So some of the other wiring I'm going to need, over here in the light switch harness, we have a green wire. This green wire is the 12 volt out to your instrument lights, which is dimmable. So if I had my light switch hooked up and I had a standard test light, and I turn the headlights on and I turn the dimming switch up and down, you would be able to see the light on the test light actually dim. I also need a constant 12 volts to go to the clock. I could go directly to the fuse panel. Unfortunately, I already have other wires tapped in there for my fuel injection. So what my plan is, these wires up here that go to the steering column are for the ignition switch. I'm going to tap into the constant 12 volt in that location. And what I plan on doing, always if you tap into a location like that, always install some sort of a fuse holder as protection. You don't want to burn your classic car down. As I previously said, I'm also going to install a toggle switch to shut the clock off when the car is not in use, so I don't kill the battery. That'll be hid somewhere under the dash. Alright, so I got the wire cut and the new wire for the fuel sender attached together. So I'm going to solder it, heat shrink it, tape it, and run it down. No power on, the solder gone. if it's overkill or not, but that's the way I do it. Alright, so what I've done is I've tapped in a fuse holder into the constant 12 volts above the steering column. I've went to the fuse holder. Off the fuse holder, I went down to my switch. So I got a switch that I'm going to mount under the dash. Little toggle switch. And from the toggle switch, I soldered on a spade connector that will attach onto the back of the clock. Also from here, I'm going to tap in to purple is the starter wire. Brown is usually an accessory wire. And over here we have a large pink. Let's see if I can get that out. Come on. Okay. So for this large pink, it almost looks red on camera, but it is pink. I plan on running that down into the center console to power the gauges. So down into the gauges I will have my fuel, ignition, dimmer, and I'll probably weld on a ground stud onto the transmission tunnel, and that'll be my grounding. And the rest of the wiring will be coming from the sensors under the hood for the temp, and I'll have to run a copper line for the oil pressure. For the center console wiring for the gauges, I've installed a standard trailer plug hitch. It's 4 pins. So I've put on a ground terminal that'll ground to the transmission hub. I've got the gray. The gray here is the lighting, instrument lights. Tan is fuel gauge. Pink is ignition, which I also have. The old consoles used to have a ammeter. I will be converting that over to a voltmeter. So the power into it, I grounded one side of it, and the other side I'm going to run off the ignition, and I believe that should be able to tell me what voltage the car is running at. The other wire I have here is green. The green is the temp sender wire. And then on the other side, I'll have the other side of the plug, and I'll be able to plug that in, and if I need for some reason to remove the center console, I can just unplug it and remove it. To install the center console gauges, you're going to need a temp sender. I picked this up at the auto parts store. It's a TS6, and it's made by Standard, made in Mexico. It's not an AC Delco, but this is professional quality. When OE fails, trust Standard. It's got to be good. So for the gauge, you're going to have a sender that looks like this. There's a special fitting that clips onto the top. If you've gotten a sender and it's a basic spade terminal, it's probably designed for your cluster light, which I have, which is installed in the head. This I'll probably be installing in the intake. Alright, so I'm at the point of almost putting the dash back in. I just wanted to show you at the HEI distributor. Right here, the first terminal is the tach. Not this one. this one right here. So I took a spade terminal and put it in. I don't have the right clip, but a spade terminal fit in there. Never take the other wires that are coming out over here, because they are not the tach wire and you could cause yourself a short. So as you can see, this is not a good sign because the dash is back out of the car. So the little cable actually has to loop around this little thing here. Alright, so it has to loop through there. So there was no way I could have fished that through that hole with the dash in the car. So now I'm taking it all back apart again. So note to anyone doing this with a column shifter, get that cable through before you put the damn dash in. Alright, so we're back in the garage. And I'm going to start on the cup holder inserts. I got to modify an original 4-speed insert for the console. So I know everyone's going to beat me up about this, so just leave it down in the comments. Negative or positive, I don't care. I like all comments. So we're going to do a little arts and crafts today. I have a thin piece of construction paper, and just like in kindergarten, we're going to go I'm going to try and keep this from moving. So what I want to do is I want to get an imprint of the ridge around here so I can make a plate that will sit exactly in that silver line. That's it. You can see a pretty distinct line that I've made. now I'll just keep fine tuning until I can get it to take its place. We're not too far off. Alright, so I've got my plate cut out and it fits right in. Now I've got my cup holders. Just so everyone can see, that's the number on there. I bought off eBay a while ago. I don't remember who the vendor was. So I put these on here, evenly spaced where they're going to fit without the flanges hitting on each other. And I've traced around with a black marker. So now I need to start cutting this out. I would use a hole saw, but I don't have a hole saw that exact size. So I have what you call a air body saw. I'll probably be cutting it out with that. So this is the air saw. It's from Harbor Freight. Cheap, probably I think 20-25 bucks US dollars. Cool tool. So I'm at the point my insert is all cut out and sanded, and I need to epoxy it in, or JB weld it in, and paint it black, and then do the silver outline. As you saw in my previous clip, I accidentally cut this piece out. And I thought I was going to have to start over or TIG weld this piece back in. Fortunately, when the cup holder is in, it completely covers, so I'm happy with that. So I'm going to continue now, and maybe I won't film it all, and I'll show you guys the finished product at the end. Alright, so everything is installed, done, buttoned up. We got the dash tach. We got the clock. And center console gauges with the cup holders. I'm very happy with how it turned out. Now, my coffee will go right there. I will not spill it on my way to work. I fired it up and tried everything. Everything seems to be working as intended. Not too bad for some gauges that are extremely old. Got my Phytech fuel injection controller. I put that up and hide it. And that's all. So this is my happy face. So if you like this episode, like, subscribe. I know it was long, but I got some more installation for you guys coming up. I have a rear diff cover and a rear stabilizer bar.